I am here with the legendary Danny Boyle. We are live on camera. We're using Aaron's little traffic studio because there's a lot of Irish dancers here today. So, Mr. Boyle, how are you?
Hi, Kevin. All right.
All right. So I want to use this interview as like a nerdy thing because I have so many questions I want to ask you about filmmaking. And first of all, this is something I've always wanted to know, and I'm sure you've answered this question a million times. Why? I know it's based on a book, but why was it called Trainspotting? Because last night when I was watching the sequel, Begbie's father in the flashback says the word Trainspotting.
Yes.
Can you talk about how that came about?
So that's in the original novel, and we didn't include it in the original film. And so everybody, especially when we were in America, said, why is it called, what does Trainspotting mean? And I used to have to explain it all the time. But actually, of course, since then, because the film became quite well known, and also because geeking, kind of internet nerds, that kind of thing became much more commonplace, because that's basically what Trainspotting means. It's obsessive behaviour by men writing things down. You know, it's a kind of very particular cultural habit in Britain, and it was writing down the names of trains as they passed through stations.
Interesting.
And these men would gather in anoraks, kind of like geeky at the end of railway stations, and as the trains come through they'd write the names down, and then they'd send in the post letters to each other saying, I saw this train here in Crewe or Manchester or Liverpool.
Wow.
And then we'd go around like that, so that's where it comes from.
I had absolutely no idea. Now, filmmaking-wise, this cinematography in this movie is absolutely brilliant. I think the way you use your camera as a leading character, which I absolutely love. And I'm wondering how you come up with what shots you're going to do. For example, there's an amazing camera on the microphone that Ewan McGregor is using when he's singing that song.
You spotted it, yeah.
Yeah. So how, when you're directing that scene, what do you want to convey with that shot? Because I feel like the camera's almost like a fifth character.
Well, it's such an extraordinary scene of him singing this song.
Right.
And his performance, it's all about the performance really. You want to get closer to it and kind of immerse the audience in it as much as possible. And you knew, as the tempo of the scene built, you knew it was going to be frenetically cut together like that as this crescendo builds.
Right.
So you thought, how can we get in on Renton like that? And of course, putting a small camera on it, it's a bit like you can let the actor take over.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like taking over this camera. You just take it over like that, and it's
awesome.
Yours before you hand it back to the operator.
Danny Boyle just held my phone, by the way. I just want to let you guys know that.
So that's basically you just give the actor, it empowers the actor, and that connection between the actor and the audience is increased. You know, if you use it well.
There's an amazing shot in the film, and I remember looking over at my friend and going, how the heck did he do that? It was a moment where Begbie and his son are robbing this house, and you have this camera that's like in the corner, and the house looks like it's like 30 million feet tall. Is that like a wide lens? How did you get that look?
Yeah, I mean, one of the wonderful things, it's one of the dangers of films being reduced to smaller screens now, is that directors will lose the habit of, when you have that big screen, like Tarantino does this brilliantly, is that he'll let you see the whole scene on a wide shot.
Like Hateful Eight with the 70mm, that was amazing.
And he'll let you be the editor. You select where you want to look as his dialogue pings around. And that's an amazing thing he does, and nobody gives him credit for that, I think. As a director, he lets you be the editor. Right. You select where you want to see on a wide screen. And that's the danger with the smaller cameras and the smaller screens that we're moving towards, is that we might lose that. You need a great deal of patience and confidence to let people do that. So you want to see a wide, you want to see the whole environment and see your characters within that.
And one thing I love about you is that you've been shooting on film for so long. I mean, Steve Jobs to me was brilliant because you did 16:35 in digital.
Yeah, we did.
Trainspotting originally was shot on film.
Yes.
This is shot digital.
Yes, it is.
Can you talk about like how that difference was for you, and what do you think digital gave you that film didn't give you back in '96?
The big thing it does do, and this is the really good thing about it, is that it can let you go wild with the actors, because you don't have, film is quite precious in terms of you can only run it for 10 minutes at maximum, sometimes only 4 minutes on some cameras, and so you have to limit the amount of kind of freestyle that you're doing, whereas a digital will run for an hour. A digital camera will run for an hour. I mean, you don't often run it for an hour, obviously, because it gets ridiculous, but on certain scenes, it allows you to go freestyle and let the actors get on with it, and it means that you can put cameras somewhere unoccupied, so you can leave a camera somewhere and just let it work in the scene, and you can run it so that it just captures the actor at a certain moment, where they arrive at a certain moment in the scene, and you grab that moment without having to set it up specially. It's just a moment you capture during the main shoot, which might be over here. So they're wonderful opportunities for that.
So cool. We're gonna have Danny Boyle live on our show at 9:40. I'm just trying to pick apart some of the nerdy stuff that I usually can't ask on the air. Obviously, one of the most brilliant shots from the original film and now in this movie is your pull away from Ewan's room. And how do you make it look like you're going longer than the room exists? Like, because obviously you did it in '96 a little shorter, but in the new one it's like you go like way.
So it eventually becomes CG.
Okay.
Replication.
Is it a dolly zoom?
No. To begin with, it's a dolly and a very, very wide lens, which makes a small room, a small bedroom, appear to be much, much longer as you go away from it like that, which we did do in the first film, realistically, when we were travelling on the bed.
And that was real, there was no CG.
There was no CG.
Yeah.
No, because there was no internet then, there was nothing there. But now you kind of start that in the same fashion, with the same idea, and then CG takes over and you get this image of him dancing in his childhood bedroom, which
so
is
cool.
Yeah, and everybody's childhood bedroom, we've all had that experience when you go home, and you're kind of, I used to go on, I was in my 50s and I was still sleeping in the same bedroom with Led Zeppelin posters on the wall, and and it was kind of like, because your parents don't change your room because they love you coming home and it being the same. So it's an image that tries to capture that.
This movie works so well, but on its own, because you do so many flashbacks and things to the first film to give, like you have the baby moment, you have things in there that people remember, but if you haven't seen the first one, you can still appreciate number two. Since that was done through Miramax, and this is done through Sony, TriStar, did you have issues getting rights to that, or do you own that movie? How does that work?
No, we were good. The ownership of the movie wasn't a problem. We were able to. So you're able to use very occasionally little snippets of the original film, which is very cruel on the actors, because obviously you see them as they were then, 23 years old, and you see them as they are now, 46.
Ewan's aged really well, by the way.
He's aged really well, but and that's in the script, everybody says, "You're looking well, Mark." Mark Benson. And he says, "Yeah, everybody says that." His problem is he's what he looks like inside is his problem. Whereas for some of the others, it's what they look like outside as well.
Right. One thing I love about the film, you have these amazing moments during these fight scenes where you'll freeze the frame for a second, like very quick. And I'm like, as a director's choice, it's so brilliant. What are you trying to get across to the audience with that freeze frame?
The obsession with time, because the movie's about time. 20 years has passed. Movies are about time. Editing, filming. You are compressing time or extending it, slowing it down, speeding it up, and you can do this amazing thing. And it is like playing God. You can stop time. Because if you're loving the movie, you just stop time. We can't do that. But that's part of our sentence in life, is you can't stop time. We'd like to sometimes.
Yeah.
We'd all love to, especially when you're in your mid-20s. But you can't. But movies can, for a little moment, boom, so it was almost like and obviously it's to try and invoke a kind of the idea of, photographs stop time as well, don't they? Your photo moments. And we've sort of lost that. We take so many photos now with our cameras. We've sort of lost how precious. You remember how photographs used to be when you had a hard copy of the photograph and it just stops time for a moment. So it's just trying to involve that.
Now Aaron's holding the camera. Do we have a couple more minutes? Are you okay?
Yeah, you have a few more minutes.
But before we let you go, he's like, stop asking all these nerdy questions. No, but I do. One thing I love about, I remember I interviewed you for SLUMDOG Millionaire. You mentioned the photographs, and there were parts of India you couldn't shoot rolling film in, and so you took like these still frames and put them together to make the motion.
That's right,
And I thought that was really cool because it just reminded me of that still frame effect. Now, the cool thing about this movie is you do have references. The toilet scene from the original is one of the greatest scenes ever. It still looks really cool. I rewatched it the other day, and I remember I spoke to you at Steve Jobs. You told me how they did that, but what was the balance of bringing stuff back but also creating something new? So, for example, you do have Ewan's famous laugh when he lands on the car, and he does like his famous laugh like he does in the original film. So, what's the balance of calling stuff back but not too much?
It was a lot of it was based on the actors. So we do the scenes, and they'd say, "Shall I have a muscle memory of this moment?" It's literally like a physical memory of it. Like you recall something. It's like deja vu. In our own lives when you get that moment of thinking, "I've been here before." And so they would illustrate that like that. And then sometimes you'd make the decision in editing to cut back to something from the original film, or to cut a scene in a particular way, or to use a piece of music. that reminded you of the first film. You know,
Yeah.
there's certain, everybody loved the music from the first film, so we'd use odd bits of it that actually are the same chords, but the whole track's been remixed, so it's not like a repeat, but there's a similarity. So the muscle memory thing happens again in you. It triggers things you can't control. Music is like that. It sets off emotions in you that you can't fully talk about, but you understand when you feel them, you know?
Totally, I agree. And Trainspotting too, by the way, if you live in New York and LA, I believe it's out today.
It is.
And then DC, it'll be the 24th, and I believe it'll keep expanding. It's really, really well done. I loved it as a fan of the first one. It was a total, it made me feel happy. I like spending time with these guys, even though some of them are really bad. I don't know why that is, but I enjoy spending time with Begbie and like with these emotional moments. Why do we like to watch these guys, even though everyone's flawed in life, everyone is, but Begbie's a pretty bad guy at times.
Yeah.
But why do we like spending time with him?
I think they don't apologise for what they are, and I love that. I think they just like on PC, and they kind of just, and they also have a sense of humour, which gets to forgive almost anything.
And a rawness to them.
Yeah,
and a rawness, absolutely.
Last question, because I definitely can't ask this one on the air. I'm curious in this 90s what you used for the heroin in the film, and then in this movie, what do you use for cocaine when an actor has to put it up his nose? How do they do that?
Kevin.
Is it like crushed up like?
It's like
powder.
It's baking soda.
But is it really going up his nose?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and his head is full of it. He feels it in his head for like days afterwards. Not in the way, obviously, of cocaine,
Sure.
but it's still, and it affects his voice. You can hear his voice change when he does it. Yeah, they use baking soda.
Al Pacino told me when he did Scarface that he actually has problems breathing out of his nose now because
he took so
much of the fake cocaine in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right, the movie's out. If you live in New York and LA, go see it. This guy's a genius. I love his work. If you haven't seen 127 Hours, everything, go see it. Trainspotting's phenomenal. I mean, brilliant work. So
Thanks, Kevin.
always good to see you, by the way. And watch Steve Jobs. He goes 16:35 digital, and even the composer recorded in different tracks,
Yes,
right?
that's right, in analog and then eventually digital, yeah.
Yeah, and your movies have such a great feel of music and techno, and it's amazing. All right, we're going to let this guy go. We're going to be on the air shortly, 9:40 a.m., Fox 5, so stay tuned for that. This is Danny Boyle.
Mike, would you, sir, please?